I got thrown out on Christmas after my aunt made false accusations against me, but years later she admitted she made false accusations against me to protect their secrets. I never imagined I would be writing this post, but my entire world crashed down last Christmas because of my Aunt Karen's lies. I'm Alex 19 Minim, and I need to share how I lost my family. Over false accusations that destroyed everything I knew, let me give some background. First, I grew up in what I thought was a close-knit family in Minnesota. My parents, my younger sister Marissa, 16, and I lived just a few blocks away from my dad's brother, Uncle Sebastian, 47. Sebastian married Aunt Karen, 45, when I was 8 years old. Karen always had to be the center of attention at family gatherings. She would cry at other people's birthdays, make dramatic announcements during celebrations, or suddenly develop migraines when conversations weren't focused on her, but everyone just accepted it as Karen being Karen. And since she made Uncle Sebastian happy, we all learned to deal with her dramatic tendencies. I just finished my first semester at college studying engineering. I've always been the quiet, studious type. Got good grades, played video games, worked part-time at the local grocery store during high school. Nothing exciting. Just a normal kid. Marissa is the more outgoing one, always surrounded by friends and involved in school activities. Our parents were always supportive, if a bit overprotective, especially of Marissa being their youngest. Last summer, our whole family took a trip to Florida. We rented a beach house and spent a week there. About halfway through the trip, I got a really bad sunburn and had to stay inside one day while everyone else went to the beach. I remember spending most of that day in my room playing my Nintendo Switch and only coming out to grab snacks or use the bathroom. Karen was the only other person in the house, but I barely saw her. Looking back now, I wish I'd documented every minute of that day. Everything seemed fine after that vacation. I went off to college in September, came home for Thanksgiving without any issues, and was looking forward to spending Christmas break with my family. Karen and Sebastian came over early on Christmas Day to help with preparations. Mom was cooking her traditional Christmas roast, Dad whistling his usual bad jokes, and Marissa was texting her friends under the table. It felt like any other family Christmas. During dinner, I noticed Karen was unusually quiet. She usually dominated conversations, but she had barely said anything since we sat down to eat. Mom asked if everything was okay, and that's when Karen started crying, not her usual attention-seeking tears, but full-on sobbing. Everyone stopped eating and looked at her concerned. Uncle Sebastian put his hand on her shoulder, asking what was wrong through her tears. Karen started talking about how she had been keeping a terrible secret. She said she'd been too afraid to speak up, worried about destroying the family. Then she looked directly at me and dropped the bomb. She claimed that during the Florida trip, when everyone was at the beach, I'd tried to assault her in the kitchen. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut as she continued with her story, describing how I had supposedly cornered her and tried to force myself on her. I couldn't even process what was happening. The food in my mouth turned to ash. I kept shaking my head, trying to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. Karen went into graphic detail about things that never happened, crying about how scared she had been, how she could barely sleep for months. She said seeing me act normal at dinner like I hadn't tried to ruin her life made her finally snap. Mom was sobbing. Dad's face had turned this terrifying shade of red, and Uncle Sebastian looked ready to leap across the table at me. When I finally found my voice and tried to defend myself, tried to explain that I had been in my room all day playing games, Karen cut me off. She started screaming about how she knew I would deny it, how predators always deny their actions. She said she had text messages from that day showing how distraught she was, though she conveniently couldn't find them now. The next hour is mostly a blur in my memory. I remember trying to explain, trying to get anyone to listen, to reason. I pointed out how I had never had any issues with Karen before, how it made no sense for me to suddenly attack her. I asked why she would wait 6 months to say anything, why she would choose Christmas dinner to bring it up, but no one was listening. Dad grabbed me by my shirt collar and literally threw me out of the house into the snow. It was 20 degrees outside, and I didn't even have my coat on. I heard Marissa trying to speak up for me, asking the same questions I had about the timing, but Mom screamed at her to go to her room. I stood there in shock, watching through the window as Dad changed the locks. When I tried to call Mom, I discovered they had already blocked my number. If it wasn't for Marissa, I don't know what I would have done. She climbed out her bedroom window about an hour later, bringing my backpack with some clothes. And her savings of $400, she was the only one who showed any critical thinking, who questioned why Karen would handle situation this way. But she's only 16 and our parents wouldn't listen to her either. I spent that night in the cheapest motel I could find, trying to process how my life had imploded in just a few hours. The next morning, I called my best friend Mike, who immediately offered his couch while I figured things out. I tried reaching out to other family members, but Karen had been busy. My cousins had all blocked me on social media, and my grandparents sent me a message saying they were ashamed to call me their grandson over the next few days. Marissa kept me updated about what was happening at home. Karen was playing the perfect victim, bursting into tears whenever someone mentioned my name. Claiming she was having nightmares and panic attacks, my parents started telling everyone I was troubled, that they should keep their distance from me. They even warned my younger cousins to stay away, like I was some kind of predator. I know this is getting long, but I needed to get it all out. I've lost my entire family over a lie, and I don't know what to do. Only Marissa believes me. But our parents have started monitoring her phone and social media, so we can barely communicate. I'm living with Mike and his family while trying to figure out my next steps. But it feels like my entire life has been destroyed. How do you even begin to rebuild when your own family chooses to believe such horrible lies about you without even giving you a chance to defend yourself? Update 1 first. I want to thank everyone who commented on my last post. Your support helped me realize I needed to focus on survival instead of trying to convince people who had already decided. I was guilty. The past 2 weeks have been a roller coaster, and things have gotten even more complicated after that. Christmas night, I stayed with Mike and his family for about a week. His parents were incredibly kind, but I knew I couldn't impose forever. I had to withdraw from college since my parents were paying for it, and my savings from my high school job wouldn't even cover 1 semester. Mike's dad helped me get a job at the warehouse where he works as a supervisor. I'm also working evenings ATA, restaurant, washing dishes. Between the 2 jobs, I'm working about 70 hours a week. It's exhausting, but I'm saving every penny. I found a tiny studio apartment in a not-so-great part of town. The building is old, and there's a weird smell in the hallway. But it's all I can afford right now. I'm taking a couple of online classes through community college when I can, usually late at night after my restaurant shift. Mike's mom helped me get a cheap laptop from a pawn shop so I could at least keep studying. Marissa still tries to keep in touch, but it's getting harder. Mom and Dad installed some parental control app on her phone and check all her messages. She can only contact me through her friend's phone during school hours. According to her, our parents have completely transformed into different people. They threw out all my childhood photos, packed up my room, and told relatives they're planning to turn it into a home office. It's like they're trying to erase any evidence that I ever existed. But here's where things get interesting. Yesterday, I got a message on Reddit from my cousin James, 25. I haven't seen him since I was 14, when he suddenly moved to California and cut contact with the family. Back then, everyone just said he had gotten into trouble and run away, but now I know the truth. James reached out after seeing my post because Karen had done the same thing to him 5 years ago. James told me everything at a family reunion in 2019. Karen accused him of trying to grope her during a family barbecue. Just like with me, everyone believed her without question. James was 20 at the time, had just started college, and had his whole life ahead of him, but overnight, he became the family pariah. His parents, my Aunt Lisa, and Uncle Dave kicked him out just like my parents did to me. He packed what he could fit in his car and drove to California, where he had to rebuild his life from scratch. The parallels between our stories are chilling. James said Karen does this whenever someone threatens her position in the family. At that reunion, he had caught her flirting heavily with one of Uncle Sebastian's friends behind a garden shed. A week later, she made her accusations. It hit me then, a week before Christmas. I was at the mall shopping for presents when I saw Karen having lunch with a man who definitely wasn't Uncle Sebastian. They were sitting in a corner booth and she had her hand on his arm. When she saw me, she looked startled, but then just waved like everything was normal. I didn't think anything of it. At the time, James told me Karen had done this to their cousin Amy too, who moved to Europe 3 years ago. We're starting to see a pattern. Anyone who might expose her secrets gets targeted. She uses these accusations as a nuclear option, knowing that once she plays that card, the accused person will be cast out of the family with no chance to defend themselves. I tried telling my parents about James calling from different numbers, but they blocked every attempt. Marissa Says they've convinced themselves that James and I are both lying, that we're trying to discredit Karen because we both troubled kids who couldn't handle family discipline. Mom even joined some online support group for parents of problematic children and spends hours every day posting about her troubled son and how she missed the warning signs. The hardest part is hearing how they've completely rewritten their memories of me through Marissa. I learned. They now talk about how I was always a difficult child, how they should have seen this coming. They tell relatives about imaginary incidents, from me childhood tantrums. I never threw fights. I never had problems that never existed. But the truth is, I was a normal kid. I got good grades, worked part-time, never got in trouble. The worst thing on my record was a detention in 8th grade. For forgetting my gym clothes, they're creating this whole false narrative to justify choosing Karen over their own son. I hadn't cried since that night in the snow, but I broke down when James told me a story. It's not just about losing my family anymore. It's about realizing how Karen has systematically destroyed multiple lives because she can't stand the thought of being caught in her lies. James says it gets easier with time, that he's built a good life in California now. But right now, everything feels like it's divided into before and after that Christmas dinner. All I can do is keep working, keep studying, and hope that someday the truth comes out. Update 2. I honestly didn't expect to be updating again so soon, but everything has exploded in the past 48 hours. The truth about Karen finally came out, and it's worse than any of us imagined 2 days ago. Uncle Sebastian caught Karen with his best friend Mark at their lake house. Sebastian had surprised her with an impromptu visit since he had a business meeting canceled. He found them together in the master bedroom at first. Karen tried to claim it was the first time that Mark had manipulated her into it, but Mark's wife, Sarah, had already found Karen's secret phone hidden in her car glove compartment. The phone was like opening Pandora's box. There were messages going back over 3 years, not just with Mark, but with at least 3 other men. Karen hadn't just been having one affair, she had been living a complete double life. There were hotel receipts, secret email accounts, and even a hidden credit card Sebastian knew nothing about. But the most damning evidence was in her message history. Karen had been systematically targeting family members who might expose her affairs before accusing me at Christmas. She had texted one of her affair partners about seeing me at the mall. Them messages showed her panicking about me, possibly telling Uncle Sebastian, then planning how to make sure I wouldn't be believed if I ever spoke up. She did the exact same thing to James when he caught her at the family reunion, and to Amy when she saw Karen with someone at a restaurant. 3 years ago, Sebastian called me yesterday morning. He was a mess, crying and apologizing over and over. He said he found Karen's journal in her desk drawer where she had detailed all her plans to isolate anyone who might threaten her position in the family. She specifically wrote about accusing me because she knew my parents would believe her without question. She called it her nuclear option, an accusation that would immediately remove any threat to her secrets. The journal entries are chilling. She wrote about how she picked Christmas dinner for her accusation because it would be more dramatic, how she practiced crying in the mirror to make it more convincing. She even wrote about enjoying watching my life fall apart, saying it would serve as a warning to anyone else who might think about exposing her. What makes it even worse is that Sebastian found entries about other family members she was planning to target. She had a whole list of cousins and their potential secrets she could use against them. She was like a spider in the center of a web, playing with people's lives for her own entertainment. My parents still won't talk to me directly, but they're starting to ask questions. Marissa says Mom has been crying constantly since Sebastian told them about the journal. Dad hasn't spoken to Karen since he found out. And apparently he threw up when Sebastian read him the entry about Karen planning my accusation. But honestly, their guilt means nothing to me right now. Uncle Sebastian is filing for divorce, and his lawyer says Karen won't get anything because of all the evidence of her affairs and manipulation. She tried to claim the journal was fake, that Sebastian and Mark's wife Sarah were setting her up, but then more proof kept coming out. Other affair partners have started coming forward, and it turns out she's been doing this for most of her marriage. Sebastian asked if I would consider pressing charges against Karen for defamation, but I'm not sure I want to drag this out in court. James called and said he's considering it though, especially since Karen's journal includes entries about her false accusations against him. The family lawyers think we have a strong case with the journal and text messages. Sevidence, the hardest part is knowing that my parents threw me away without a second thought, and it took physical proof of Karen's lies for them to even consider. They might have been wrong. They made no effort to investigate, never questioned her story, never gave their own son the benefit of the doubt. How do you come back from that kind of betrayal? I'm still working. Both jobs, still taking online classes, still living in my tiny studio apartment, but now at least I know. I'm not crazy that I wasn't imagining how calculated and cruel Karen's actions were. James was, right when he said the truth would come out. Not eventually, just wish it hadn't cost me my relationship with my parents in the process. Update 3. The texts and calls started flooding in about 2 weeks ago, right? After Karen's divorce was finalized, first came the extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, even my grandparents. Then my parents started trying to contact me. Everyone wants to apologize to explain why they believed Karen to try to make things right, but their apologies feel hollow after 6 months of treating me like I didn't exist. Karen left town after the divorce was finalized. Sebastian's lawyer destroyed her in court. She didn't get any Elan or property because of all the evidence of her affairs and deliberate manipulation of family members. Last I heard, she moved in with one of her affair partners in another state, but the damage she caused is still here like a poison in our family's bloodstream. Mom and Dad have been camping outside my apartment building for the past 3 days. They say they'll stay until I talk to them that they failed as parents and want to make amends. Mom keeps crying in her car, where she thinks I can't see her. Dad looks like he's aged 10 years, but every time I see them through my window wall, I can remember his dad throwing me into the snow and Mom blocking my number without even letting me explain. Marissa visits me regularly. Now she's the only family member I've let back in because she never doubted me. She's been telling me how her parents have changed. Mom had a complete breakdown after reading Karen's journal entries about plotting my accusation. Dad apparently punched a hole in their living room wall when he realized how easily he'd been manipulated into throwing away his own son. My sister keeps telling me they're truly sorry, that they're broken by what they did, but sorry doesn't erase 6 months of treating me like I was dead to them. Sorry doesn't change the fact that they believe the worst about their own child without a second thought. Sorry doesn't pay back the college tuition I lost or the nights I spent hungry because I could barely afford food after paying rent. I'm doing well now. Despite everything, I got promoted to shift supervisor at the warehouse, and my online classes are going great. Mike and his family still have me over for Sunday dinners. They become more of a family tome than my actual relatives. I'm even dating someone I met at my second job, though it's too new to talk about much yet. Yesterday, I sent my parents a message through Marissa. I told them I don't want a relationship with them. Right now, maybe someday that will change, but for now, I need to protect myself. The family that threw me away doesn't get to walk back in just because they finally realized they were wrong. They made their choice at Christmas and now they have to live with it. James told me I'm making the right decision. He tried reconciling with his parents after Karen's lies came out, but the trust never came back. You can't unknow what your parents are capable of, how easily they can turn on you. Every family gathering felt fake. Every conversation was strained with unspoken hurt. The extended family keeps saying I need to forgive because we're blood, but Karen showed us all how meaningless blood ties can be. She proved how easily people will believe the worst about someone they claim to love. That's not the kind of lesson you can just forget. I'm not angry anymore. Just tired of the constant messages begging for forgiveness. Tired of the explanations and excuses. Tired of being told I need to fix what they broke. So I'm moving forward with my life, focusing on work and school and building something new. The family that chose to believe Karen can live with their choice. Just like I've had to live with the consequences of their actions sometimes, the only way to heal is to walk away, even from the people who raised you.